Before we get into the discussion of strategic staffing plan, we need to understand what is exactly staffing. Strategic staffing includes all forms of recruitment, i.e., temporary, permanent, and contractual. It takes into consideration the staffing needs of an organization after an in-depth analysis and then formulates a plan to meet the demands. Training the current staff in the relevant skills required for the growth of the company is also part of it. With a brief understanding of this staffing model, we shall now have a detailed discussion of the strategic staffing plan. Here are the list of the 7 components of strategic staffing: planning, sourcing, recruiting, selecting, acquiring, deploying, retaining. Welcome to another episode of the Workforce Workshop. Today we will be talking in details about the steps in strategic staffing. The first step in strategic staffing plan is to analyze the organization with regard to its employees based on the current business, new businesses you might get into, businesses it will be leaving, and the gaps between the current skill set and the one it needs to execute the future business strategy. This is the best way to move forward. Now, these business plans are certain to contain components required in the short term and long term both. For instance, increasing the turnover, expansion into new sector, growth through acquisition, or launching new products. All these goals are intrinsically driven by the employees. Thus, they must be aligned with the company's objectives. To help you with the same basic question you must answer during this analysis, here's the list. What internal goals can this function achieve this year? What are the major strategic and tactical goals of an organization for the upcoming years? How will the HR function support these goals? What goals are to be set for my function to make sure that I am aligned with the company goals? What support are other functions or departments expecting from this department this year? Having identified and listed their short and long-term requirements, the company must assess their employees for the sought-after competencies and plan the recruitment drive accordingly. They can assess the availability of these competencies in the labor market and then deploy effective selection practices for hiring new individuals with requisite skills, background, and motivation. Another set of questions can be brought into the picture here, like for example, how many in-demand openings do we have? Or how many overall in-demand positions do we have currently? And what's the turnover rate of these roles? What's the biggest issue in filling these roles? What criteria are absolutely necessary and what criteria will we bend on? Answers to all the questions, in addition to the qualities of an individual, can be used to grow the firm and also provides motivation to the candidates to work. This ensures that the compensation system is working exactly how leadership intends to be. Second, sourcing. The next step in the strategic staffing plan is to source the talent. Locating a qualified candidate in the labor market is the biggest staffing challenge. Some sources that can provide you with labor market data are state and multiple labor statistics, U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics, state and employment data. Having a database of eligible individuals is just one aspect. Another important aspect is to keep an eye on the expectations of the candidates. Since they vary on case-to-case basis, it's mandatory that you know what your competitors are offering for the same position. According to the Manpower Group report, candidates' expectations vary with gender, age, and the place people are in the career life cycle. However, there are three aspects that are entirely off the negotiation table, such as flexibility, challenging work, increased compensation. As a staffing company, it is our job to point the client in the right direction of candidates that are capable of not only succeeding at the company, but also possess the right skill set to meet the role requirements. Now, if you are having trouble identifying the candidates, the simple questions to ask: what are the talents available in our market? What are the trends that are affecting skill development? Trends happen due to social impacts like managing social media requirements, the need to learn new technology, or acquiring new skill as part of the evolution of the industry. Will any change of the regulation affect our workforce? Are there any competitors that might impact the supply of quality candidates? If your competitors are growing their workforce or laying off people or laying off their employees, the labor supply may vary accordingly. Are potential game changers affecting the industry, such as companies are known as disruptors companies? For instance, Uber has impact on the taxi industry. Do we need to account for the impact of the constraints from facilities or infrastructure? These can include commuting implications, office size, and location. Will technological changes influence the demand and supply of labor? Technological advancements are an important factor to consider while planning the recruitment drive, as that might increase the requirements for additional staffing or training time or technology to improve efficiency. Will financial or economic factors affect our staffing plans? Some of these situations include straining the finances available to the firm, changes in the local economy, or influx of funding through venture capitalists. Let us move ahead now to discuss the next component of the strategic staffing plan. Third, recruiting. The third strategic staffing component is recruiting. After you have a list of all the qualified eligible candidates, you are required to set up the recruiting process, check out the plan of action, and then proceed towards its implementation. You can pull data for all long-term staffing strategies from the Human Resource Information System or payroll scheduling or talent management systems. The HRIS will help you with the aspect of headcount purposes. On the other hand, if you want data in relation to competency planning, talent management, or learning systems would serve you the best information available. Further, HR should also evaluate the factors that might change the structure of the department. These factors may include potential departures, flight risk, and current open positions being recruited actively. While planning this structure, you must have answers to the questions given later to have the best results. The questions you should find answers to are: who are the current staff members? What position would be affected by the recruiting strategy we use? For instance, what responsibilities would be taken up by an HR administrator versus an HR manager? What systems are to be reviewed in order to formulate a possible strategy? What competencies does my current staff have? Do people outside my organization, like vendors, contractors, etc., contribute to the achievement for our team goals? What expertise will the staff members bring to their newly assigned roles? Do employees outside the function influence the HR team goals and its achievement, example, the payroll, employee that report directly to the chief financial officer. This question is extremely important and relevant for matrix organizations. Do you have employees that might be flight risk or have personal issues that might affect their term association with the organization? This exercise will not only help you in making decisions, but also engage you in practices that certainly impact the number of or types of candidates that are willing to apply for the opening and subsequently accept the job offer. Generally, organizations tend to think that paying the best quality candidate better compensation is the best strategy, but in reality, there are multiple factors to consider. Some of them are productivity of the individual, the expertise level you require, your paying capability, etc. You must go with a strategy that meets your goals without compromising on the quality of work and also isn't very heavy on your pockets. With this in-depth research about the strategy complete, we need to move on to the next component of strategic staffing. The fourth one is selecting. With the recruitment strategy sorted, you have reached one of the most important steps in strategic staffing plan, i.e. selecting the right candidate. This process needs to assess the job candidate and decide who to hire. They will be competitive individuals, just qualified profiles, and various other types of questions to select the perfect fit. If you don't have a thorough procedure planned, things might get messy and unwanted. For instance, there is a constraint of labor supply in the market. Best talent are acquired by your competition, and all the other talent seem not to fit the picture you cut out. In such scenario, the organization is necessitated to increase the salary offered. This will give you a better chance to hire the right people that will help your firm grow and provide you the operational push to achieve your goals. On the other hand, let's assume that the labor supply is tight now. The firm might have to increase the salaries only to eligible in the race of hiring a candidate that has minimum level of skills and qualifications. There may be a situation where offering a higher compensation is not suitable. In such a case, the only viable option is to hire from non-traditional sources. The chances of a successful hire are not certain. Thus, if you fail to find the right recruit, and you have three options, and here they are: automate the job, reduce the qualification required for the new hires, ramp up the training process provided to the current employees of the organization. That's all you need to take care of in this step of strategic staffing plan. The fifth one is acquiring. The next strategic staffing component is to acquire talent. All the hard work done could be wasted if the company fails to acquire the candidate it deems fit. So you ought to put a job offer together that fascinates and attracts the chosen individual towards the opening that you are offering. A well-planned and persuading job offer has better chances of being accepted. But concerning that only a job offer would suffice will be a huge blunder. There's a lot of documentation that must be designed carefully, and the most important one of them, or the written offer or the employment contract. This one formalizes and finalizes the outcome of all negotiations and conversations with the candidate. It includes information such as salary, bonus compensation, for jobs, stock-based compensation, if any, and long-term accounting. Keeping aside the documentation selection, the firm also needs to work out a plan that will tempt the candidates to join their team. This can be accomplished with interaction with them, most preferably the first one that you have. This will make you different from the competition and other staffing firms who are eyeing on the same high in demand candidates. To execute this plan, you can include personalized video messages in the email signature. The focus lies on making your intention to place them with only the best employers crystal clear from the very beginning. Make sure that the candidates know that they can trust you. Further, having your client record a short video message can increase that connection with the brand and the opportunity. Undeniably, this is one of the tools that leave a lasting impression. Another aspect is that it's not about documentation, but is considered eminently necessary is branding of the company. Organizations try to build their image and brand in terms of client, but forget to include the perspective of an employee. In these current times, it is equally important to have a strong branding strategy to attract the best people that are in demand and have high quality talent. This was all about this step of the strategic staffing plan. Let us move on to the second last step, 6, deploying. The second last strategic staffing component is deploying. After the selection of the acquisition of the talent, you have to deploy them into appropriate roles and jobs to utilize the talent in the best possible way and to optimize the company's efficiency and thus help it grow. One of the primary goals of the staffing is to ensure that the newly hired employees have the potential to succeed in their roles and responsibilities. Any kind of compensation or motivation is ineffective if the worker is not assigned to the job that suits their skills and interests. Even performance incentives fail to bring out the best in such scenario. An organization that is willing to use pay for performance or merit pay system for motivating its employees to be more productive is certainly looking at its goals but missing out on the aspect that this plan of action would not work if the skill possessed by the workers are not up to mark or lack any component. Performance incentives are effective when the individual have the potential and will give it their best and perform well in the first place. Thus, deploy your workforce in the correct fashion and you will reap the benefit of it by achieving your short and long-term goals. Lastly, retaining. The last step of executing the strategic staffing plan is to retain the talent acquired and deployed in the previous steps. This is a challenge for the client as for the competitors are always on the lookout for any employees that isn't engaged or committed to their workplace. Thus, you have to keep these successful high-demand individuals engaged and committed. You are certain to be frustrated when the right talent leaves the firm after a short while, even after providing them with such great growing and working opportunity. Locating, hiring, and developing the best talent must seem like a huge task, but the real task is to retain these treasures or talent. A firm is enabled to retain the hired talent does not only bear the financial loss as the turnover is expensive when the best performers leave, but also speaks volume about the organization as a whole. Further, a higher retention rate of the company directly translates to the organization saving cost, time, and other resources on hiring to fill in job vacancies. If you ask us, performance-based incentives are one of the most used and most successful tools that are employed by the company to retain the best performers. In conclusion, these 7 strategic staffing components are all that you need to stick to, and your goals for the company will be achieved with better efficiency, lower cost, and the quality of work will be absolutely amazing. When an organization executes this strategic staffing plan strategically, they create a staffing system that supports the business strategy and the performance of the organization as a whole. The level of compensation an organization is willing to pay and the will to invest in salaries of its employees is also an important factor to determine its ability to hire people with the required qualifications. This is all for today's episode. Links to everything will be in the description below. If you like our content, don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification button. It will notify you with our new content that we share with you every week. This will help us produce great content for our professional audience. Let us know if there is something you would like us to discuss in future episodes. Please click the link in the show notes and you can address your questions directly to me. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next week.